Oh, welcome to the Russ Joy Show on a special Tuesday edition of the show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Welcome in. Hello. My voice is mostly back. Sort of. Kind of. I don't know. Maybe. That's at least the hope. I hope my voice is back. If it's not, this show is going to be an absolute disaster. But to my knowledge, it is mostly back. I'm able to start doing a lot more of the goofy voices and hit a lot of the higher notes. So I'm thinking that my voice is finally in recovery in this post-flu laryngitis-y thing that was going on. But I'll tell you one thing that's not getting any better, the NBA All-Star Game. Oh, no. I know that it's a Tuesday, and I know that many of the talking heads have already offered their thoughts, but oh no, we're going to talk about the NBA All-Star Game. We're going to talk about the Four Nations face-off, which I was very wrong about, and I'm man enough to stand here on a terrific Tuesday and offer my thoughts on the Four Nations. How about Sam Harrison in that? I get that the U.S. wasn't fully healthy last night. I get it. But Sam Harrison putting on a nice little performance there to give Flyers fans just a little bit of hope. Oh, and by the way, Jalyx Hunt did something hilarious. Nolan Smith clowned Emmanuel Acho. Oh, we have so much to get into today. But first, before we do, we're going to go where we like to start a lot of these shows. That's out in the comments to say hello to the gang, to the crew, to all of the wonderful people who choose to start their day off with the Russ Joy Show, which in fairness, it is a good way to ensure yourself that you're going to have some joy in your day, is to come to this show. Now, I do want to give you the quick programming note. Although this is a weird Tuesday episode of the show, I will be back tomorrow. We're going to keep going with the regular Wednesday and Friday. President's Day was kind of a mess. Daughter had a birthday party. All the kids are home from school. My wife made plans to have other my son's other friends come over to that. I could not find a clear moment yesterday to do a show. So to those of you who expect a marvelous Monday episode of the show and had a terrible start to your week, I am so sorry. But again, it's a terrific Tuesday, and so we're gonna move on together. That's hope you can believe in. Again, out to the comments. JH says, good morning, Russ. And also says, Harrison being only a backup goalie, my whole ass, plays great with a competent D-core in front of him. I agree. Didi Skinner checks in, says, Airs, good on him. Had a really good game. Joe Papel says, good morning, everyone. Waiting on Russ Joy Show before starting work. Joe, sorry that you had to wait so long. I forgot. So I put out the thing last night. I set the studio up, and I was like, yeah, 8:30. It's going to be fine. Totally forgetting why I moved the show, or a big part of why I moved the show to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. There's a Tuesday meeting that's very important that I have to be on, and I forgot. And then I went to go live around 8:30 this morning, and I realized, oh, that call's coming up. Ruh-roh. Got to postpone it to after that meeting. And then that meeting went long, and here we are. But again, it's totally fine. No big deal. Chris Freed says, Joe, you may never start work. Joe asks about the Press Roadshow. I have no idea. There is a bar in Philly that wanted to have us out for the Press Roadshow. We talked to them about it, and then I don't know what happened. I know they still want to do it. We just haven't followed up on it. It's kind of been like our story a little bit this year with Snow the Goalie. We've had a lot of great ideas and a lot of really smart ideas that have been out there, and then we just haven't followed through on them. So, I don't know. Now, many of you who watch or listen to Snow the Goalie know that typically on Tuesdays around 10:30, we go live with a show from the Snow the Goalie studio. I'm clearly not at the Snow the Goalie studio. Their video team is totally booked today and tomorrow, and I think they said Thursday. So we were going to do it from home, and then Aunt San Philly lets us know last night that he has no power. So prayers up to Anthony Sanfilippo that he gets some power back in his house. I can tell you he's also going to need some prayers because there are some vicious people in the comments on an Instagram reel on the Snow the Goalie account in which Anthony poo-pooed the Four Nations. And then I was like, all right, I had the come to Jesus moment here where I was like, all right, the Four Nations is actually quite good. Now, I had no expectations of it being anything of value, and I was very wrong. And so I am who I am, and I tell you guys all the time that when I'm wrong, I'm going to tell you that I'm wrong. And I was wrong about the Four Nations, so I text Anthony, and I text Bundy and intern Andrew a couple days ago. And Bundy's like, yeah, I'm watching. He's like, it's actually pretty good. This is the U.S.-Canada game. And then Ant kind of poo-poos it again. And then last night I said, yo, I get that, like, it's not a full U.S. squad, but, like, Four Nations have actually been pretty good to this point. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not. It's not good. Nobody cares. And I was like, that's not true. Now, I have a whole bunch of stats to provide you guys with, and I typically don't withhold on my show, but I know that Anthony watches this show, probably hate watches it, but he watches it nonetheless. So I don't want to tip him off to all of my points to prove why he's wrong. So you'll have to tune in to Snow the Goalie, unless somehow the episode doesn't happen this week, in which I will drop all of the factoids on each and every one of your heads. But it has been a roaring success. And a big part of the reason that it's been such a success is because it was juxtaposed this weekend by an absolutely atrocious NBA All-Star weekend, which I'm going to get into in a little bit as well. You have to remember, the first sport that I really cared about, I played soccer as a little kid, right? But my first big sport that I watched on TV that I loved was basketball. I loved the NBA. And I point to you guys this out to all you guys all the time, but like Vince Carter is the player who got me to watch basketball. I was at like my mom's aunt's house, or like her great aunt's house or something. Aunt Anna, nice lady, rest in peace. And there was a Raptors game on TV. Must have been a nationally televised game. And I was a little kid, and I liked dinosaurs. And you remember the old Raptors logo had the little T-Rex dribbling the ball. And I watched Vince Carter, and I was mesmerized, right? So the NBA has always been something that I've loved and cared about. And I told you guys before, big connection through basketball and the Sixers with my Baba. May she rest in peace. And so I'm like, I love the NBA. But the All-Star weekend is horrific. We're going to get there in a little bit. But because the All-Star weekend was so bad, it allowed for the four nations to really kind of grab the sports world by the throat. College basketball has been iffy to this point. I mean, like, there were a few big-ish games over the weekend, and we're a month out from March Madness. Fine. I'm not a big college basketball guy. You had no NHL games because of Four Nations. You had no NBA games because of All-Star Weekend. Really, it was Four Nations versus All-Star Weekend. And the way that social media works in its big, beautiful way, people got to see the two of them heads up, face-to-face, squaring off, lined up in the circle, got ready for puck drop or for tip-off. Like, it was something to see. It certainly was. As a basketball fan, as somebody who's always loved basketball, rough weekend. But again, we're going to get there in a second. These are just some initial thoughts. Nico checks in over on YouTube, says, good morning. Joe Papel says that when it comes to work today, he's on RST, Russ Standard Time. Ford calls me a prima donna, but says that I'm all of your prima donna. I'll take that. I don't want to be Madonna, though. She seems kind of gross. Greg Bondarenko says, morning all. Glad to have this show back, Greg. Glad to have you back. Glad to see all of you. Landros2 says, morning all. Hoping Thursday night is as good as round one, USA versus Canada. Again, we're going to get there in a little bit. Absolutely awesome game. And again, when you put them heads up, and I'm going to get into some of the clips and some of the things that happened this weekend about why it was such a resounding success, I think, for the league as a whole, minus a few injuries that are going to happen anytime there are games, including international games. It's been a big success. Chris Freed says, I was thinking about doing a trip to Boston for US-Canada, but the cheapest seats, are $1,200 each. Holy shamoly. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a tournament that not everybody was bought into. And again, I was not bought into it, but there's something about putting on the red, white, and blue. There's something about it that gets me going. And so I'm all in on the Four Nations, but we'll get there again in a second. Nico, shouting out the newspaper. I got to do a better job here. My wife, I'm going to have to get her to take those into school and laminate them. I think that's what's going to have to happen because all these other ones are laminated. I need consistency, even though I don't like the glare that happens on this, and I'm a little bit too lazy to figure out the lighting perfectly in this office/studio. I'll get there. Tony Louis says, come back to La Sicilia. We might. I loved La Sicilia. The food was great. That was a great night. We had so many people that traveled very long distances to go be at that show for the Press Road Show. I would say it's possible. Raymond Supper over on YouTube. Should have believed Torts on the Four Nations. He was spitting fire on the bench on Saturday night. He was. Well, he was pissed off because the Canadians booed the national anthem, which again we'll get to in a second. Landros 2, the sun has risen and Ant is wrong yet again. Some things are just predictable. When Ant watches or listens to the show, he's going to put you on a banned list. Landers, got to be careful. Got to be careful. Ford says the NBA is dead, the whole league. It's sad. I used to love the NBA. Poor Ford. Poor Ford. Ford, I also have seen the 4 or 5 times that you've bumped your comment about the giveaway. There might be a giveaway at some point. I'm not sure. Jamie Rollo says 4 Nations is way better than I thought it would be. Nowhere near as good as the Olympics or even the World Cup of Hockey. Still good hockey, though. I will tell you, there was the report that came out over the weekend that they are looking at doing a World Cup of Hockey, I believe, in 2028 is what was being discussed and what was reported over the weekend. Let's see. No, the NHL put it out. Sorry, it's not even just a rumor. It's legit. 2028 World Cup of Hockey to return in February 2028. Let's see. World Cup of Hockey will return in 2028. The NHL and Players Association announced last Wednesday. Oops. I guess I missed that. Sorry, guys. Let's see. It'll be part of a calendar of international competitions that includes the 4 Nations, the 2026 Milano Cortina Olympics, and 2030 French Alps Olympics. Okay. Interesting. I'm hoping that the NHL players, presumably the NHL players, are going to be allowed to play. Hence, it's an announcement between the NHL and the NHLPA. So that's going to be something really, really interesting. The World Cup of Hockey returning. Okay. I think that a game that is as international as hockey is, you can make the case basketball, very international as well. There's something nice about having these teams don their own nation's colors and go after it and represent their nations and put themselves, their bodies, their hearts, their minds on the line for their countries. It's a big reason why the 4 Nations has been as successful as it is. And I guess now is probably about a good as time as ever to get into what I thought was the wildest thing from the weekend. And this weekend had a lot of wild things. I'm going to show you a couple of different things to just juxtapose what we saw in the hockey world with the 4 Nations face-off and what we saw in the basketball world with the All-Star Weekend, because these were 2 vastly different events, and it wasn't even close. Now, if you are a basketball-only fan, well, you might have checked out All-Star Weekend, although it's fallen off so much in recent years, I wouldn't really blame you if you didn't. If you're a hockey-only fan, chances are you were checking out the 4 Nations, especially because, again, there is that national element. There's that national pride element to the 4 Nations, which you don't get with the NBA All-Star Weekend. Now, as I said at the top of the show, I've always loved basketball, and I have very vivid memories of Vince Carter in the dunk contest, shoving his elbow into the rim, the 360 windmill, the bounce off the floor to the through-the-legs dunk from Tracy McGrady to Vince Carter. I remember these things very, very well. And it feels like almost every year there's an existential crisis being held at the national level about, is the All-Star game dead? Is All-Star Weekend dead? It feels like it happens each and every year. I mean, you can go back to when Andre Iguodala was in the dunk contest representing the Sixers, had himself a hell of a dunk contest. Who could forget that beautiful little lob from AI off the back of the backboard, and Iguodala gets it, goes from underneath. It was a great dunk contest. Nate Robinson shouldn't have won that, but okay. It feels like every year there's a hope that somebody's going to save the dunk contest. I'll tell you what. Call it a hater. Call it a hater's line of thinking. LeBron James never doing the dunk contest is some of the biggest bullshit in the history of professional sports in North America. This would be akin to all of the best baseball players in Major League Baseball saying, we're not going to do the home run derby. This would be akin to Albert Pujols saying, I'm never doing the dunk or doing the home run derby. It is mind-boggling to me that LeBron never did a dunk contest. Now, in fairness, I don't think that LeBron James on merit would have won a dunk contest, because if you go back to the only time I can remember him being nationally televised in a dunk contest, it was when he was in high school at the McDonald's All-American Dunk Contest. And it was mostly LeBron goes through the legs, LeBron does a windmill, LeBron does the ball out as far as he can and dunks it. But in terms of creativity and the like, I don't know if LeBron would have won it. I think that LeBron's ego couldn't have allowed him to try to compete for something where he might have lost. And so you had this entire missed opportunity where LeBron doesn't do a dunk contest. But you know who used to? Kobe did a dunk contest. Vince Carter did a dunk contest. You've had players in the past who have been all-star level or MVP level candidates or multi-time champions who have done dunk contests, but LeBron James would not. John Morant earlier in his career did a dunk contest. After this weekend, after Mac McClung, spoiler alert, completes the three-peat, John Morant kind of teases out there that, maybe he would come back and do the dunk contest. Tried to see if Aaron Gordon might get back in the dunk contest. Giannis threw out the idea of doing the dunk contest. Here's the problem. The NBA has a bunch of stars who are all bark, no bite. Seeing those tweets was ridiculous. There is no reason that going into the All-Star weekend, you should have had to Google at least two of the competitors in the dunk contest. If you follow the All-Star weekend year over year, you know who Mac McClung is. You also know that he's not an NBA player. He's a G League player that is allowed to do the dunk contest, and thankfully so, because the NBA is an absolute joke when it comes to the event. They would be better off having the most viral dunkers online, guys that you find on TikTok and Instagram Reels and the like. They would be better off having those guys come in, create a team, and then lining up an NBA team or an NBA/G League team and have them go head-to-head. Make it a team competition. NBAPA would never go for it. Why? They don't want the embarrassment. They don't want to lose. Why don't the best players in the NBA, why don't the most athletic dunkers in the league participate in the slam dunk contest? Presumably because they don't want the hit to their ego if they don't win. Why was it so hard to field a legitimately good lineup for the three-point contest? Why the fuck is Steph Curry not in the three-point contest? You would think that a guy who's been known for his limitless range, a guy who's been known as one of the best shooters in the league for the better part of a decade, would be in the three-point contest. He wasn't. Why? There was supposed to be the event where Steph Curry takes on Sabrina Ionescu. I always screw up her last name. But that they were going to go head-to-head. Could there have been a possibility of Steph Curry versus Caitlin Clark? We got no WNBA representation in the three-point contest. I would have certainly preferred a few of the WNBA's best shooters versus some of what we got in the three-point shootout because it was so abysmal. I watched it with my sons the next day on DVR. We watched the Four Nations, and then the next day we watched the three-point shootout and the dunk contest because I don't want to have to watch commercials. And if it's an NBA production, we know there are going to be many commercials. And I said, usually you would expect a guy to score somewhere in the 24 to 31-ish point range. But then this year, I don't know if it's the first year, I don't remember last year this being a thing, the starry balls, right? So it's 3 points each, 2 shots, 6 potential additional points that hadn't been a thing in the past, or that I can at least remember being a long-held thing. We're getting guys like in the low 20s. We're getting guys in the teens, 16 to avoid elimination, 18 to avoid elimination, 19 to avoid elimination. Tyler Hero's performance in the three-point contest that ended up winning it for him would have been like embarrassing in most years. And yet, the NBA has a hard time getting their best shooters to participate. No offense to Buddy Hield, but would I pay money to go to the three-point shootout to go watch Buddy Hield jack threes? I would not. Do I think that the NBA fandom as a whole was thrilled that they got the lineup that they did? Probably not. Kudos to Damian Lillard, one of the only actual recognizable names and star players in this league, although on the downside, I would say, of his career. I think he's past the peak of his prime. Kudos to him trying to go for the three-peat in the three-point shootout. This league has legitimate issues. Oh, and by the way, it got worse. But before we get there, I am going to give one little shout-out because I think that by far the dunk of the night, the one that I thought was probably the best dunk of the night, was one from Mac McClung. And it was one where he went and he dunked 2 balls, okay? Not just one. Mac McClung jumped over a car. He had a dunk at the very end of the competition where he tapped it off the front of the rim and then kind of double pumped it and jammed it. No, my favorite dunk of the night from Mac McClung wasn't that at all. It was the one where he went up after it with 2 balls. So there's one on the rim, and then there's one that he has to handle himself. And it's wild. He's got a guy down on, he has the guy down on the hoverboard, if you can't see it here. He's got the guy down on the hoverboard. He's got to jump over him. He has to dunk the ball that's at the rim with his left hand, and he's got to finish with the right hand when he, that was in his hand from that he grabbed off the hoverboard guy. This is like next level creativity. And again, why is it that it takes a G League player to, for the third year in a row, be claimed as the guy who is going to, quote, save the dunk contest, end quote? That can't happen. That shouldn't happen. In a league that has as many star players as the NBA, that simply should not be the case. You shouldn't rely on a G Leaguer to bring people through the door and to bring eyes to the TV. And yet that's exactly where the NBA finds themselves. And by the way, it got worse because throughout the weekend, everyone poo-pooed. I mean, virtually every single pundit, every single current and former player, they all poo-pooed All-Star Weekend. Because I think I mentioned this last week. The All-Star game, right? You're used to East versus West. Last year was such a debacle. I forget the final scores, like 211 and 186 or something. It was so absurd that Adam Silver was pretty much getting pressure from all angles. These guys don't take the game seriously, change it. So they came up with, all right, we're going to have drafted teams of All-Stars, right? Which to me went back to a few years ago when in the NHL, they implemented the idea of having team captains and kind of doing like the round robin sort of tournament, which was weird and didn't work, and I think brought the lowest ratings in of any NHL All-Star game in quite a while that year. I'm pretty sure. Somebody double check, give fact check, drop it in the comments if I'm wrong. But I saw that and I went, all right, so Charles Barkley's going to draft a team, Kenny the Jet Smith's going to draft a team, Shaq's going to draft a team, and then whoever wins the Rising Stars Challenge on Saturday is going to be Candace Parker's team on Sunday. And I went, all right, I don't like it, but at least it's something different. And then I found out, oh, no. It's not a timed game. It's the first team to 40 points. And I said, what are we doing here? How do you come up with that being a great idea? Whose idea was it? As I said, like it got bad. Like things got bad, things got worse. I mean, hell, the entire weekend got started off on the wrong foot, even before you got to the All-Star game. Because while in the Four Nations tournament, you had 3 fights in 9 seconds between the U.S. and Canada, the answer to that was this bullshit over at the skills night, the skills contest, where you had Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul get disqualified because one of them, Wemby said it was him. It would probably make more sense that it was Chris Paul. One of them decided that the real smart thing to do here in this event was, sure, go through, pass through the circles, whatever, but then don't actually attempt the shots. Just kind of whip them out there because it just made sense to like get the course done faster, and that any kind of added benefit to making the shots would be negated by the sheer speed at which they would do it. Now, on one hand, you kind of applaud the creativity. On one hand, you look at it and you say, yo, heady decision there by Chris Paul or by the young Victor Wembanyama. But at the same time, it's an absolute disgrace and mockery. Like, people are paying money, for better or worse, to go see you guys, and you try to circumvent the rules with this bullshit. And again, the problem was that at the same time that was going on, the Four Nations tournament had the U.S. and Canada dropping the gloves 3 times in the first 9 seconds of the game, in a game that had a lot of passion behind it. So, not exactly a great look for the NBA. Some people said, oh, people are just, they're just they're overcomplicating things, and they're overstating just how bad the All-Star Weekend is. And I said, all right, well, let's just see. Like maybe somebody's gonna have an opinion. Now, things got bad this weekend, and I mentioned LeBron and LeBron not ever wanting to do a dunk contest. And well, there was a problem because on the night of the All-Star game, right? The day of the All-Star game, right? That afternoon. I think it was that afternoon, or was it that evening? I don't remember. It was either late that afternoon or that evening of the All-Star game. So on Sunday, LeBron James has a press conference. And at the press conference, LeBron James is asked about, his health. And he's asked about what should people expect to see from you tonight in the All-Star game? Because again, it was Sunday. There had been nothing mentioned about LeBron possibly not playing. And what should we expect from you, LeBron? What should the basketball fans who are going to tune in from around the world and those who pay for seats, what should they expect from you, LeBron?
new format, and what will we see from you tonight?
You won't see anything from me tonight. Unfortunately, I will not be in uniform tonight. Still dealing with ankle and foot discomfort, so I will not be playing tonight, unfortunately. I hate that, but I'm looking forward to seeing the format. This is the first year for it. I know we got a lot of great, they call us the OGs, that's hilarious. We do got a few guys with gray hairs, so that makes sense. But, that should be fun. I saw the quote the other day when DK was somebody who's going to play against me, so I guess I'll see him at practice.
So LeBron James, probably still the biggest star in the league, the most recognizable name in the sport for 2 decades. He announces that on the same day that the All-Star Game is set to take place, that he will not be participating in the All-Star Game, which actively screwed other players who were reserves or could have been part of the All-Star Game. LeBron probably went into the weekend knowing that he wouldn't play, and instead of putting that out and letting it be known that he wasn't going to be able to participate, he waits until a press conference the same day and says he's not going to participate. Oh, there was also a photo shoot that day of his team, and he couldn't be bothered to put on the jersey. I'm sure they had shorts and a jersey, socks and sneakers that he could have put on to, be part of the team photo, and instead he wore what he wore to that press conference. But again, it's not about him. He doesn't make it about him. It's a selfless thing, really. LeBron waiting until the last minute to announce that he wasn't going to play, that's actually a selfless thing. He was trying very, very hard to get out on the court. You could see the pain on his face that he wasn't going to be able to play in the All-Star Game. You could just tell. And the reason, of course, that he didn't put on the jersey and the shorts and the sneakers and the socks, well, that's clearly because he's selfless. He doesn't want people to look back on that image of his team years from now and think that, oh, LeBron did play. He wants to signify, to show you, to signal to you that, oh, no, LeBron didn't play. Let's not get him confused with the guys who did play. Good on you, LeBron. Great move. So again, the face of the league, at least in the minds of many, waits till the last minute to not play. On the same weekend that we saw the goofy shit with CP3 and Victor Wembanyama, that whole weekend where the NBA was facing increased scrutiny, LeBron doesn't play and waits until the same day to announce to the media, oh, I'm not playing. LOL. Ha ha ha. LMFAO. Cool. So that happens. But it gets worse because a contemporary, a peer of LeBron, was pretty outspoken about LeBron not playing and about the fact that because he waited so late, it screwed at least one other player out of being able to participate in All-Star Weekend. And I will say this. I'm going to pull a couple of things here that were said by Draymond Green over the weekend. One of them I'm like a little bit iffy on, but this one I definitely agree with. You're about to hear from from 3 guys, Draymond Green, Vince Carter, and Jalen Rose, all about LeBron James' late decision to participate, or rather not to participate, in the All-Star Game and the ramifications it has on other guys in the league who could have played in his stead.
Unfortunate news here. Ben Golliver reporting LeBron James will not play.
I hear the voice of my former co-host Adam
Lefkoe. As there's a sad reaction behind us, and Draymond's first reaction was, I could have told you that an hour ago. Do you have any other news that you need to break right now?
I just know he's been dealing with that. He took a couple games off last week, and then I think he played one of the games with Luka. But I know he's been dealing with that, and so it's kind of expected.
Gotcha.
So Draymond giving you a kind of, not a veiled shot, but maybe a little bit of a twist of the knife, but that LeBron's been dealing with an injury. Okay, but if that's the case, then you might say, well, then why didn't he just back out? Like, especially if he knew he was hurt, give a guy the opportunity to experience the All-Star Weekend. Why wouldn't you do that? Especially if you're a face of the league and a guy who's well-respected like LeBron, why wouldn't you do that? Okay.
The reaction, I think we all were disappointed when we heard that news.
Well, it's the reality. It kind of is what we were saying about All-Star Weekend. We were talking about getting the top players to compete on Saturday to help boost the dunk contest. And we talked about LeBron being the key domino in that. And now we're trying to create a 3-team, 8-player squad to combat the best players not competing hard in the All-Star Game. So now with the new format, hopefully now is legitimized and players actually go out there and compete.
So what happens now? So one team plays with 7, or?
there is the other question. But, Jalen Rose says hopefully the guys are going to play hard and all that, and the people are going to like it. People did not like it. We'll get there.
Yeah. It is what it is. And the Shaq OG team is the favorite in this tournament, so I'm curious now how that changes anything. But yeah, I guess they're rolling with 7. Draymond, do you just want to suit up?
I think Bron could have helped somebody else out and said
it earlier so they can find someone else.
There you go.
Go in and play.
There's Draymond and Vince Carter.
I ain't had that type of year, but somebody out there. D-Book.
We have a jersey for you. D-Book. Absolutely.
So I think that they were right. Like, I don't really care about the being shorthanded for the goofy little tournament, but like, just conceptually, right? If you're a leader in the league, shouldn't like at least part of your thought process be, all right, I can't play. I know that I'm probably not going to be able to play. I'm going to bow out a little bit earlier, or at least like Saturday night have the indication that like I might not be able to play. The league brings whoever the other player is, whoever the reserve is. I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe it would have been like a Sabonis or something. Like, bring a guy in and have that guy be somebody who could be on an all-star team. And instead, LeBron waits. They play shorthanded. Now, Anthony Edwards also did not play, but we'll get, that's a whole other thing. So that was ugly, not great. Then the tournament itself happens, and it didn't go over well. And this is where I come back to Draymond Green, because Draymond Green had a legitimate problem with how they decided to field the 4th team. So remember, Shaq picked a team, Kenny picked a team, and Charles Barkley picked a team, and then Candace Parker got the winners of the Rising Stars Challenge. And Draymond did not like that. Draymond actually hated the fact that the young guys, that the Rising Stars were going to take up a portion of the All-Star game, and thought that the young guys didn't deserve to be there necessarily as much as the vets. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but we'll hear him out. Again, we'll listen to Draymond a little bit. Let's see what Draymond, because then Charles Barkley has an answer to this, but not on this panel, obviously. You can see that Charles Barkley's not here, but we do have it queued up. Let's just hear what Draymond had to say, though. Like, why shouldn't the Rising Stars have been part of All-Star Sunday?
Done.
So you work
your thoughts on the format.
This question leads to where he wants to go.
You work all year to be an all-star, and you get to play up to 40, and then you're done. This is so unfair to Victor Wembanyama, who just took this game really seriously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who just took this game really seriously. When you talk about chasing after the points record, Melo and Kobe and all these guys.
He's talking about the points records for the All-Star game.
They don't get the opportunity to do that with this game. Also, we can watch some rising stars. We're about to watch the Olympic team. Now we get the treat of watching the Olympic team play against a U19 team. Come on, what are we doing? This is ridiculous.
So he hated it, obviously. Draymond hated the idea of the young guys being shown part of All-Star Sunday. Now, in theory, I understand the argument, and I understand that it's unfair to guys that especially don't get to play much, and up to 40 kind of stinks. Now, if you take the game seriously, like Wemby did and like SGA did, then fine. Like, those are maybe 40 hard-fought points. 40 points in the regular All-Star game last year took like 7 minutes. So, I don't know. I don't know if I totally agree with Draymond. But leave it to Charles Barkley. Sir Charles had a response, and his response to Draymond was much more, kind of noting why the league ended up in this position that it did, where it had to do this experimental All-Star game that wasn't really an All-Star game at all. And leave it to Charles Barkley, not to mince words. He goes after Draymond and Draymond's generation of players. Let's go over to Charles in response to Draymond during the All-Star game, by the way.
I know that, there's some skeptics, even in our staff, about the format of this game.
So you got Kenny Smith talking right now.
The only thing that's questionable is that, the young guys get to play Sunday. But in terms of play, Chuck had it said it best. You said there's a reason why this game.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Draymond a lot. Listen, we're trying anything. I use the analogy like when your kids mess up the house, you make them clean it up and they complain, and they mess the game up. That's why we're trying kamikaze stuff out here right now. So his generation messed the game up. So don't act like he's mad because they're trying to use rookies, and we're doing every type of trick to make this weekend exciting.
So Charles in what is probably the least shocking development of the weekend, blames the current generation of players. But is he wrong? I would say probably not. Again, last year's NBA All-Star Game was an absolute embarrassment. Now, there are people who try to make the case that even in the early 2000s, like even in the guys in this poster behind me, even in their playing days, that you would get like a lackadaisical 2 quarters, maybe 3 quarters, but by the 4th quarter, the guys would actually lock in and try to win the game. There's the famous story about how in Michael Jordan's final All-Star Game, Kobe Bryant has free throws, and they try to tell Kobe, miss the free throws so Michael can win his final All-Star Game. And Kobe gave like a death glare because it meant something to those players at that time, or at least to the Kobes of the world. This format should never happen again. And I would actually make the argument that if the NBA wants to fix their All-Star weekend, it's really simple, but it is going to shine a kind of glaring light and a glaring problem that the league has. Take a leaf out of another sports playbook. Team USA versus the world. If you want the NBA All-Star Game to have some actual pride and to have some actual oomph to it, have the American players, the American All-Stars, take on the best of the rest of the world. And let that one play out. Now, I'm not saying that the American team, that the Team US has to wear, the red, white, and blue, has to wear the stars and stripes. And I'm not saying that the rest of the world needs a generic gray jersey, right, that just says rest of world. We don't need like the old school NBA All-Star Game where everybody wore their team's jersey. So you'd watch Allen Iverson in a Sixers jersey lob up an alley-oop to Vince Carter in a Raptors jersey. I'm not saying we need to see Wemby out there with the French national team jersey. Oh, maybe it would be interesting. Do Team USA versus the rest of the world. That could be fun. Or what if you did NBA All-Stars versus the best of the rest of the world? Line up the best players from the other leagues in this world and have them go head-to-head. The NBA would win, and probably win decidedly, but if you don't think that those guys who would get this massive international exposure from the rest of the world, if you don't think that they would bust their asses to win, I think you're sorely mistaken. There are things that the NBA could do to fix things. They could provide financial incentive of a significant number to get the best players in the three-point shootout and the dunk contest. And honestly, as somebody who enjoys basketball, I'd say, have at it, man. If you're Adam Silver and you're trying to fix it, drop beaucoup bucks to have those guys in those skills contests. There is a slight tweak that you may need to make to the NBA All-Star Game to maybe make it watchable once again. But it was a brutal, and I mean absolutely brutal, watch this weekend in the NBA. And that's from somebody who, again, loves basketball. Our Hextall87 says, how about the defending champs versus the rest of the league's all-stars? You would have a real issue there. And I think a big reason why it would be so problematic is what would probably end up happening is the all-stars are going to beat the previous year's team. And also, how do you do the previous year's team if those guys aren't on the same squad anymore? What if there was bad blood that led to a player leaving in free agency or via a trade? Are they now going to don the jersey of the team that they left to go play on that team? Conceptually, it could be interesting. The execution of it, I think, would be really, really hard. Now, I mentioned that all of these things went wrong, right, in the NBA, but I want to go out to the comments here really quick just to see if there's anybody who had anything positive that they could take from the All-Star Game, because I just didn't see it. Chris Freed says the NBA could do an 8-nation tournament in November for 2 weeks, have the semis and the finals Thanksgiving weekend. NBA needs to take All-Star weekend out back and put it out of its misery. Well, Adam Silver loves in-season tournaments. That would not shock me if they looked at something like it. They're not going to kill the All-Star weekend. They still, I guess, view it as being a marquee event. Kevin Hart had a ton of screen time. There's a clip of SGA telling them to wrap him up so they could get back to playing the game. There was the weird interlude to eulogize inside the NBA, even though it's presumably like going over to ESPN next year. The whole thing's just weird. There's just a lot of really, really weird stuff going on. All right, let's see. We got Henry 3000 checking in with my name. Appreciate that, Henry. Let's see. Ford says LeBron ruined the NBA. Ask him about his money from China. Nick Bott says All-Star games need to be finished with. 4 nations is a step in the right direction. Give us a World Cup and Olympics back. That's what's likely going to end up happening there. Okay, now here's our Hextall says NBA All-Star flag football. Might as well do it. I mean, the Pro Bowl is a disgrace. The flag football Pro Bowl is horrific. So that takes us to the NHL. That takes us to the 4 nations because that seems to be the one thing that flies in the face of where a lot of these All-Star games have gone. And again, I was incredibly demure. I was very melancholy about the idea of the 4 nations being anything other than an All-Star game replacement. I did not expect a scenario where you were going to see the USA, Canada, Sweden, and Finland give it their all and lay their bodies on the line because when push comes to shove, these guys are going to go back to their NHL teams, and you don't want to get hurt in this mini tournament and then be out for the team that actually pays you all of the money. And there's not a ton of prestige to this tournament, right? It's not the Olympics. It's not a World Cup of hockey. It's the first time they've tried this 4 nations thing. So in theory, I sat back and said, like, I just don't see it being competitive. And I was very wrong because the games to this point have been quite good. Now, some of them have been lopsided, but you're not seeing guys go out and just go through the motions. And last night, Team Sweden knew that one of the Kachucks was going to be out, Matthew Kachuk was going to be out, that Austin Matthews was out. And they said, you know what, like, we're gonna give it a go. And Sweden is a good team. And they ultimately had Sam Ersson in net. Oh, well, kudos to the Flyers goalie. Had himself one hell of a night in net against Team USA. Now, again, Team USA, not at full health. I mean, we could put a whole bunch of qualifiers on there. But Sam Ersson last night looked like an absolute stud in net against what is still a very talented U.S. national team. Now, here's your boy, though, Sam Ersson. Flyers fans out there. 32 saves on 33 shots faced, a .970 save percentage. Very, very good. Mind you that going into this tournament, the thought was that Sam Ersson wasn't going to play at all. And then he went out and he put up a hell of a game against the U.S. So there's one positive that we take from it. But listen, the game of the weekend was very clearly the U.S. and Canada. And it was an absolutely bonkers game. And now we, as hockey fans, are blessed that we're going to get a rematch on Thursday night because on Thursday, we are going to watch the U.S. and Canada do it all over again. Now, mind you, on Saturday, the French Canadians in Montreal booed the national anthem. That's a no-no. You shouldn't do that, but they did. Wasn't a very good idea. But these are just some of the highlights that we saw in this game on Saturday. This was wild, brutal. The Kachucks, both Kachucks, and JT Miller dropping the gloves with Team Canada. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of this game. And ultimately, Team USA prevails over the Canadians. And they ended up booking their ticket. Oh, this is great, by the way. The hit on Connor McDavid sent him horizontal like John Elway in a Super Bowl. Team USA, by virtue of winning this game, got themselves locked into the championship game on Thursday. And now the Canadians, who were licking their wounds after Saturday's game, came out. They dominated Finland on Sunday. They're going to want revenge. The good news, I guess, if you're a U.S. fan, is that this rematch is going to happen in the United States at TD Garden in Boston. And so one has to think that the home crowd advantage, home ice advantage, is going to be with the red, white, and blue. Now, I will point out to you really quickly that the way that the game went down caught the eye of some people. The way that the booing of the anthem went down, it caught the eye of some people. And in fact, I have been told that there was a United States president who paid attention to what happened the other night and was apparently very upset with the treatment that the Americans got between the booing of the anthem and just the blatant disrespect of this nation's ability to play hockey. We're actually going to throw it over here really quick. I know some of you guys don't like this guy, but apparently the current sitting president of the United States was very worked up about the booing of the anthem and the disrespect shown to U.S. hockey. We're going to throw it over to the Presidente right here. Go ahead.
My fellow Americans, we've seen some horrible things, some very horrible, terrible, no good things, many things over the years, but our 51st state, we was going to be the 52nd. We were going to go Greenland first, Canada second, but it might have to become the 51st state. Maybe we'll even just make them a territory. They'll just be Puerto Rico. We don't know. But the French Canadians, not even the Canadians, we like the Canadians except for Trudeau, but the Canadians, the French ones, we don't like French. We don't like Quebecois. We don't like poutine. They can poutine it in their pipe and smoke it, believe me. They will, and they can, and they will, believe me. And we are not going to have Quebec or Montreal as part of our beautiful union. They booed the national anthem, and the Kachuk brothers, they did a great job. We had 3 fights in 9 seconds. And we made McDavid go horizontal. He kind of looked like John Elway in the Super Bowl, doing a little spinorama. I have contacted Governor Trudeau, and I said, listen, if we win, lose, or draw tonight, that doesn't matter. But when it comes to the Four Nations tournament, whichever team wins, and it's going to be America, when we win, when the stars and stripes are flying in Canada, once again, Canada is going to become the 51st state. It is here. You've heard it here first. But we're not taking Canada, the French part. No French Canadians. We just don't like them, folks. We don't like them, believe me.
Wow. So when you get, I guess, the U.S. president's attention, did Canada mess up? I don't know. 610-632-09. Listen, I see in the comments that I see a lot of the same thoughts that were shared on Twitter as well. But you had, Landros saying that they were booing Trump, not America. Joe Papel says they weren't booing the red, white, and blue. They were booing the orange for his 51st state nonsense. I will kind of cue in on the last word there, the nonsense. I actually know the answer to this. My question would be, do people really think that Trump is going to invade Canada, annex Canada, and make it the 51st state? I know that there are people who very much believe that that's going to happen. I think it's ridiculous. There was actually somebody, it was funny, in response to that video on Twitter, it was a guy who was in the Canadian military, and he said, we are open to you becoming our 11th province. And I laughed because I said, that's just as ridiculous. Why can't we ever laugh about things? But then people get worked up. If Justin Trudeau wanted to say that they were going to annex North Dakota, I'd laugh. But I get it. There are many people very upset, and okay. I don't think we're going to annex Canada. Now, if things change, we'll come back here to the Russ Joy Show, and I will offer one of my good old fashions. I guess I was wrong, but as of right now, I just don't see it. Maybe I'm crazy, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. Let's see. R. Hextall says that he would want the poutine. Joe Papel says the disrespect goes both ways. R. Hextall 87 says, doesn't matter if he would or wouldn't, something shouldn't be joked about. And then Landro says, even with that, Hexy, I didn't like fellow Canadians doing that. I guess booing the anthem. I just don't think that you boo another country's anthem. I really don't. They call it simplifying things a little bit too much. I often view anthems as being a show of respect, especially to troops and to people who've lost their lives for their country. And so I think if you boo an anthem, to me, you're essentially booing their military. Now that, again, could be an oversimplification of things, but like you wouldn't catch me booing anyone's anthem. Even a direct enemy of the state, I wouldn't boo their anthem. I would stand there silently. I'm not going to boo their anthem. Now, maybe I'm crazy. Again, maybe I'm just an asshole. But I think it's kind of ridiculous. But that's where we're at. Landros says, no, we will not be the 51st state. That's right, because Greenland is first, 52nd. I'm just kidding, Landros. Am I allowed to? I can joke with Landros, though. But okay, I'm also, I don't get it. I'm also not a sitting president. I get it. I'm a standing guy talking at a microphone. Okay. So anyway, the Four Nations tournament was great. And now you have USA, Canada with a lot of bad blood. We expect fights. We expect big hits. But what do we expect more than anything on Thursday if you are a hockey fan? You expect two teams that are going to lay it all on the line on Thursday. And even if you were just to compare the NBA All-Star Weekend in its totality versus the Four Nations face-off in its totality, there is no competition when it comes to the level of compete showed by the players and by the seriousness with which each player has taken the respective court or ice. There's no comparison. Thursday is going to be awesome. And I will point this out. Last week, or over the weekend, while the U.S. and Canada were playing, Field Yates, who covers the NFL, and J.J. Watt, obviously a very famous former defensive lineman, they were both tweeting about the Four Nations game between the U.S. and Canada. They weren't tweeting about the All-Star game. They were tweeting about Four Nations. And for some people, that might just be like anecdotal bullshit. Who cares? I think that this is the first time that the league, the NHL, did something right. By putting that tournament, especially putting that USA versus Canada game directly in competition to NBA All-Star Weekend, many people, I think, a lot of basketball fans would even say that Saturday night is bigger than the actual All-Star game on Sunday because people do like the three-point contest, and they always hold out hope that the dunk contest isn't going to suck. By putting it in direct competition, it showed a massive disparity in what's wrong with All-Star games and what is so right about this Four Nations tournament. So I've enjoyed it. I was very wrong about it. Again, I didn't expect these players to play as hard as they have, but I think there is something about you get to don your nation's colors, you get to wear that crest, and you represent your country. And even though it's not a tournament with a ton of history, it's still something that matters. And for some of these guys, it might be the only time they get to represent their country. I will say that, if you're a Rasmus Ristolainen who has a minor injury, we talked about this on Snow the Goalie last week, and you chose not to participate in this, are you regretting it? Maybe not. If Risto's sitting on a beach somewhere with his tootsies in the sand and a margarita in his hand, maybe he doesn't feel bad about it. But if that's your only opportunity or one of your only opportunities to represent your country and you get to see the level of compete, part of me thinks that as a competitor and as somebody who plays in the National Hockey League, maybe you think to yourself, shit, maybe I should have gone. Maybe I should have. But maybe not. I mean, I'll tell you what, I gave the anecdote about the tootsies in the sand and the margarita in the hand. That was mostly because I saw a tweet go out. Somebody found Paul George's Instagram story, and it's Paul George after an absolutely abysmal performance prior to the All-Star break. Paul George is sipping daiquiris or something on the beach somewhere in a lost season for your team, your town, your Philadelphia 76ers. So, I don't know, it's not great. Let's go over here really quick. Jay Grebby says, Bruins just announced McAvoy is out for Thursday's final. Woof. I mean, listen, the only legitimate downside to this tournament, other than the fact that the Russians weren't invited, and I think would have made it a better tournament overall. Imagine Alex Ovechkin getting to go after some additional hardware at this point in his career. Would have been great. And Ovechkin versus Crosby, nation versus nation, could have been great. The real downside is all right, what if a guy does get hurt? What if there is an actual injury? Sure. But these guys could have been playing NHL games, and freak things happen all the time, and injuries happen. I don't know. Raymond Supper says, Thursday will be good, but be cautious betting against guys like McDavid and McKinnon. I'm not betting on this game. I'm not allowed to because of a work policy, which kind of stinks. I do occasionally miss putting the $2 bet, the $5 live bet on a game. I was never a big bettor. But not being able to do that for the Four Nations makes me a little bit sad. Maybe a wee bit. Let's see. Jay Grebby says, for someone who is, quote, built for the playoffs, end quote, Risto seems allergic to playoff-like games, hurt every year when it's time to be moved to a playoff contender, injured for Four Nations. Yeah. I don't know. Some people might say that there's a pattern there. I would not say that. I would not go that far. But there are certainly people who've kind of noted the fact that this time of year, injuries just kind of happen. We got Ford over here saying Tootsies, not Tootsie Roll. Beautiful. We're getting a little Tony Bruno. Not Tootsie Rolls. 610. All right. So, Four Nations is done. Pending Thursday's result, which we'll break down on Friday's show. We'll preview it maybe a little bit more tomorrow. Any injury updates, we'll get there. The NBA All-Star Weekend is over. The NBA returns Wednesday night with Hornets versus Lakers, and then it's a big slate of games on Thursday night. I will be very interested to see what the ratings are, national ratings head-to-head, because NBA on TNT on Thursdays. What will the NBA rating be, and what will USA Canada be for the Four Nations? I am going to be fascinated. We probably won't have those numbers by Friday morning's show, but we'll have them by next Monday's show, and I think they're going to tell a very interesting story. We will see. I want to get to two things that happen locally here with Philadelphia Eagles players. One of them is absolutely hilarious, and one is just like a very long time coming. I'm going to start with Nolan Smith, because Nolan Smith looked as though he maybe had himself a lot of fun at the parade. We're only going to call it a little bit of fun. Nolan Smith had a nice time at the parade. But Nolan Smith's called out Emmanuel Acho. And I got to tell you, for as much haterade as there has been flowing through the digestive tract of Emmanuel Acho, Nolan Smith took exception to something that Emmanuel Acho had to say on his show. We're going to listen to Emmanuel Acho first. We're going to bring him here. We're going to listen to Emmanuel Acho, and then I want you to see what Nolan Smith had to say. So the question posed was, are the Cowboys closer to a Super Bowl or a rebuild? And they mentioned the fact that Dak said they're very close to winning. Here's what Emmanuel Acho had to say about how close are the Cowboys to competing for a Super Bowl. Because, I don't know if you forgot this or not, but the Philadelphia Eagles won Super Bowl 59. All right, let's go to Emmanuel. What do you guys say, fella? Uh-oh. You guys can't hear it? Okay, hold on. Whoa. What the heck happened? Okay, please hold. Apologies to everybody. Listen, it wouldn't be a terrific Tuesday if we didn't have one potential issue. Right. All right, we're going to give this another shot. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear it this time. I'm actually very confident you're going to be able to hear it, but we're not going to listen to the whole thing. All right, here we go. Back to Emmanuel Acho.
Okay. The Cowboys are one Eagles offseason away from a Super Bowl.
Oh, boy.
They are one Eagles offseason away.
That sounds easy.
They're running. No, it's not easy.
Sounds simple.
It's not simple.
No, it sounds simple, though.
It's not. Because you know how let's
I like LaShawn McCoy already kind of interjecting here because it's so dumb.
But that is what they are. They're running back away.
All right, so you need a running back.
Barkley. They're a linebacker away. Eagles offseason. Zach Bond. They're one offensive lineman away. Eagles offseason. Mekhi Becton. They're a number 2 wide receiver away. No Eagles offseason there. Obviously, they got Jahan Dotson, who contributed in the Super Bowl, but didn't do a ton during the course of the season. The Eagles are they're a defensive tackle away. Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter. The Eagles the Cowboys are one Eagles offseason away from a Super Bowl.
Yo, I'm just going to stop. What the fuck is he talking about? They're one Eagles offseason away. All right, so you need an impact running back like Saquon Barkley. They could have had Derrick Henry. You need an impact linebacker. I mean, in theory, Dallas could go after Zach Bond, I guess, if they really wanted to. You're a defensive tackle away, and he mentions Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, both of whom were drafted by your team, your town, your Philadelphia Eagles. He mentions offensive line. Mekhi Becton is technically a free agent, although I think the Eagles are going to bring him back. But, I mean, they could try to poach that. What are we talking about?
Like, that's it. Now, the difference is like Shady said.
Oh, and he said the receiver, too.
Wait. Keep going. I think you're going to the quarterbacks next.
I like that Shady's on him.
Corners, I like Devon Bland. I like Deron Bland. I like Trayvon Diggs. I think the Cowboys, they have Super Bowl caliber cornerbacks.
Everybody mark that one down. Super Bowl caliber cornerbacks in Dallas.
I think they have Super Bowl caliber pass rushers. I think they have a Super Bowl caliber offensive line plus an additional addition.
He just got done saying they need an offensive lineman, but they have a Super Bowl caliber offensive line. Okay.
I think they have a Super Bowl caliber number 1 wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb. I think they have a Super Bowl caliber tight end in Jake Ferguson. So I think they have Super Bowl caliber.
So they have a lot of Super Bowl caliber.
Running back, a defensive tackle, healthy linebacker play, an additional offensive lineman, and a number 2 wide receiver, I think, away from the Super Bowl.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, if you just like add 5 legitimate Super Bowl caliber players to what Emmanuel Acho is already calling a Super Bowl caliber roster, then okay. But this is why I laughed, because Nolan Smith, who again had a nice time at the parade, this man went in on Emmanuel Acho. Like, went in on him. All right, here's the tweet. He says, bro, you got to be top 2 hates and not 2, meaning he's the top hater. It doesn't cost nothing to show love and say, them boys did their thing. And then he follows it up with a tweet, because I guess he didn't get any reaction or response from Emmanuel Acho. So he sends a second tweet out, tagging Emmanuel Acho, at which point, all right, hold on, let's see. Let me take this down for a second. Where the heck did it go? Hold on. Please hold. I had it. We all saw it. Hold on. Emmanuel Acho did go back after or offer up a thought to young Nolan Smith. Where the hell is it at? I had it here, and now it's gone. Where's he at? He quote tweeted. Emmanuel Acho quote tweeted Nolan Smith. Oh, we got more. Hold on. Here we go. I got it. We're good. He says, you are a champion. As good as you have become at hunting the opponent, you got the wrong one this time. I've sang y'all's praises, specifically the defense, so much that my voice hurts. You a baller, and y'all are champs, and I've been hype. And Emmanuel Acho includes some screenshots. He includes some screenshots here. You could see February 10th, February 11th, and I don't know, do we have a date on this one? Is there a date on this one? Because it was after the Super Bowl win. So Emmanuel Acho is trying to tell Nolan Smith that, I've been singing your praises. And then he uses 3 screenshots from around slightly before or after the Super Bowl to try to make the point. What are we doing? What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing? Insane. Anyway, good on Nolan Smith. Now, the last thing that I want to show you guys is one of the funniest things I can ever remember an Eagles player doing, period. So there was a fan. Now, I haven't gotten to the entire full story here about whether or not Jalyx Hunt knows this lady Daphne or not. If it's one of his friends, I don't think it was, but maybe. But she wanted to get a picture with Cooper DeJean. So Jalyx Hunt, he tried to arrange the picture. And so I'm going to kind of skip through here a little bit. But Jalyx Hunt sees this sign, and she says, I think it's Cooper. Yeah. Cooper, you can get in the jeans. Okay? Yeah. She's not wearing jeans, which kind of defeats the purpose. But anyway, he tells this girl, like, I can help you out. You just have to listen to, follow some very simple steps. He's going to be coming through here with security. You got to listen to me. You got to pay attention, all that, right? So here comes Cooper DeJean. And now she's standing there with the umbrella at the door, I guess, to get into their apartment or whatever. And listen to Jalyx Hunt.
I know the sign is crazy. Can you take a picture with my girl Daphne? And I'll win. Because that's what I freaking do. I win.
There you go.
I'm a winner. Yes!
All thanks to you.
I told you I'm the head of his security. Just never forgive me. My name's Chris.
I don't know why he's told her his name's Chris, but...
Have a great day.
So, Jalyx Hunt helps a fan get a picture with Cooper DeJean. That's a beautiful moment. Jalyx Hunt is yet another one of these guys from this Eagles team. And I swear to you, we knew that we liked this Eagles team a lot. But I think what we are going to continue to find is that these guys are even more likable than we knew. You're starting to see more and more of their personality come out. We saw it after the Super Bowl. We saw it, obviously, at the parade. And then you see it in some of the clips that have come out since. These guys are very likable. And, man, you just have to hope that Howie's able to keep this core of the roster together for a few more years. And if they do, again, as I mentioned a few times now, I have myself a feeling that this Eagles team might have the opportunity to maybe be a dynasty. Okay? So, that is it for today's show. A special Tuesday edition of the Russ Joy Show. I'll be back tomorrow, Wednesday, with another new episode. That's a lot of Russ in a very short amount of time. Thursday, I will be bringing back It's Just Wrestling. My voice was so shot last week, I could not do a show. Those of you who watched the Friday parade edition of the show, you can attest to the fact that my voice was pretty much gone. Today, it's okay. Now we're going to go have some tea and try to continue to build back the voice. But I'll be back on Wednesday morning, 8:30 a.m., live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. I want to thank everybody who joined me live in the comments. I want to thank all of you who watch after the fact, and especially those of you who listen in the podcast feed as well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And if you listen in the podcast feed, give it a 5-star rating. Leave a 5-star review, and I'll read it on the show. If you leave it over on Apple Podcasts, if you listen on Spotify, you can leave a 5-star rating, and I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Until Wednesday morning at 8:30 a.m., I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Talk to all of you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8:30 a.m. Have a great day, everybody. Have a terrific Tuesday, and we will get set up for a wonderful Wednesday here on the Russ Joy Show. Talk to all of you very soon.